Hey guys, what's going on? It's Mike from FormAWin here to help you guys develop in your careers and get your first engineering job. Today we have Trevor Case, a systems engineer at Lockheed Martin. I've worked with him. He's done great things. Let's get into it. Trevor, welcome. Why don't you give us a little introduction, introduce yourself? Let's get into it.
So, my name is Trevor Case. I've been a engineer at Lockheed Martin for the past 5 years at this point. Um, Went to school at USF. I got my undergrad in mechanical engineering, and during college times, did some internships at CAE doing flight simulation work, as well as doing some side projects such as helping build a plane. But for the past 5 years, I've been at Lockheed and I've been really enjoying all that it has to offer.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, I mean, like I've worked with you for a good bit, so I know that you're a great leader in what you do. So thank you for coming on here. Hopefully we can help students out. Everyone watching, grab a sheet of paper, pen, take some notes, apply the stuff, rewatch it, go back again, watch it again, take more notes, go out and apply it again. That's that's the system that you need to take here. So Trevor, imagine yourself as a student, right? Just starting out, kind of
Mhm.
looking for an internship, trying to find your first position. What are some tips and tricks that you would give someone, you know, early in their college life or just in college in general, trying to find an internship?
So early on, definitely would recommend uh, using your existing network. It's pretty likely that you're going to have a friend, a family friend, who's going to be working in some engineering field, and likely in the one that you want to go into. And the benefit of like reaching out to those kinds of folks really as a first attempt at getting a job is they already know you. You know it's local, um, and so you kind of have the first step in the door already by having somebody inside the company who can vouch for you. That's actually how I got my first internship at CAE was uh, asking a family friend who worked there if they had any openings. He forwarded me the link to apply to their co-op program, and I did that for close to a year before I decided it was time to move on from that.
Awesome.
But and then later on, I'll say probably in your you know sophomore going into junior, definitely junior going into senior year, uh, make use of conferences. Um, yes, they might be daunting up front, but from my experience in college and a lot of the people I worked with in college, a lot of people got their internships from those conferences, whether it was just their first internship or second or third. Using those conferences as, I mean, that's what employers are going there for. It's to hire people. So you already are getting that first impression for people who are looking for co-ops, interns. You just gotta go.
So what are some like key things that those people, those friends did to stand out that that you think, or maybe that they shared with you?
So I think one is just being able to hold the conversation. Remember, people aren't trying to hire a textbook; they're trying to hire a person. And if they're the hiring manager, and it's definitely a smaller company, good chance they're going to be working with you. So being able to hold the normal conversation kind of shows that you're not going to be miserable to work with. Because nobody wants somebody who's going to be I'll say a
Debbie
negative
Downer.
culture of the company. You want some more energy. You want someone who's excited to show up, excited to learn, and do good work.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean that's a big thing that we go over with our students at FormAWin, and I mean just interns in general. It's very simple to stand out nowadays, especially just with people going in and they're a little bit shy, but you need to be a lot a bit unshy. And
Mhm.
like at least like if you're just a little bit out of the spectrum of the norm, then that just speaks volumes because that's almost out people engineering them, right? So that's a great way to just kind of dive into it. So I'm glad you said that. Let's loop back to CAE and then maybe transitioning from there to Lockheed.
Yeah.
Did you go directly like the next day, or did you leave
Yeah.
CAE and then? Okay, good.
So funny thing about CA, kind of quickly touching back on the last point, was
Yeah,
more thing that you can really do to stand out is if you have an interview, send a follow-up email afterwards saying thank you for your time. So when I actually got the internship at CAE, I believe there was four of us that had interviewed for it, and there was only like two or three openings because all of us actually reached out afterwards, and was respectful of their time for interviewing us, and just doing that little extra. All four of us ended up getting a position. They actually created an additional internship position just so that they could have all of us there.
nice.
So yeah, I started at CAE between my sophomore and junior year of college. Um, and I mainly got it through a family friend is how I knew to apply. And there I was a more hardware engineer doing obsolescence. Um, so for the CAE makes flight simulators, so 6 degree of freedom, full motion, huge 360 screen, and as they're making these, they're more bespoke units. It's not like they're making hundreds. Buy quantities are in the single digits. So over time, as you're making more and more of these parts that you used on your first batch, were no longer in production, so you'd have to find replacement parts that met the same function, would survive the environments, all of that, as kind of a drop-in replacement. So that was my job there, and I stayed there for the summer, a full semester, and then a bit more. But by that point, our tasking was kind of running out, and I had got what I needed out of that co-op. That first foot in the door, the experience in the workforce, um, and so then after that junior to senior year, I actually worked over at a Boy Scout camp in Switzerland for the summer. It's always been something I've wanted to do. I was, kind of do a summer, I wouldn't necessarily say abroad, but do like a park ranger type of role. And the opportunity came up, and I said,
Cool.
why not? So
Yeah.
that was a unique experience being able to travel overseas to work at a Boy Scout camp, just enjoying the mountains of Switzerland. And then from there, that summer ended. And at the time, Lockheed actually was coming out to schools and doing technical talks. So, your College of Engineering is going to be putting on these events with local employers who are looking for employees. So I went to one of those events with my resume, got asked to do an interview the next day, and then I actually had to wait months. Because at first I didn't think I got the position because the interview was in like September, and they were mainly looking for people to start in December, after grad. So it wasn't until December when I got the calls asking if I'd be available to start in, May, June when I was actually graduating. And so yeah, been at Lockheed since.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I mean that's a great way to get all that round experience. Yeah, I mean you've been around the block, I guess. Um, with like just going through maybe some struggles because it sounds like you were able to get your foot in the door, excel, and then that kind of led you to where you're at. What are some other struggles you saw that other students went through maybe, or maybe that you went through that you had to overcome to kind of set yourself up for the position, right? Because you had to show up and
Hmm.
be good at your job, right? And like you don't just do that naturally. So you probably had to kind of get yourself ready for that. So like what are some things that you did to get yourself to be a good intern and a good engineer?
So myself personally, something I think really helped me was being part of the scouting program. Working towards the rank of Eagle Scout really helps you practice being a leader in a no risk environment. Everyone's there to support you, to help you develop. You learn those public speaking skills. You learn how to lead small groups towards a common goal. You also learn how just to lend a helping hand to when people need it and not being afraid to step up and help. So I definitely think that helped me a lot. Um, and then another thing is, just apply, right? Worst they can do is not respond. Definitely much worse than them saying, "Oh, we're no longer considering you." But the worst thing you can do is really just not apply. Once you have your resume made, it only takes a few minutes to apply to a new job, right? So it doesn't really take that much time out of your day or your week just to set an hour aside and just look through companies you want to work for and just apply to what seems interesting to you. Um, and I'll say something I noticed with some of my classmates that didn't get the job they wanted. Some of them thought they were, I'll say, better than others. And so they were only going to accept the best of positions. And they ended up not getting a position out of college and went back for a master's because of it.
Yep.
And then another one of my classmates got and didn't do any co-ops or internships in college, couldn't find a job out of college, and actually went and pursued military
Hmm.
uh, to be an engineer in the military, and that's worked out for him. Um, and so it's better to kind of take the even if it's not
Like,
a job, it's a job.
yep.
Um, Especially for the first few years of your career, no one's going to judge you if you worked at a company for 2 years or so and decide, okay, it's my first job, it wasn't for me, or to use it as a stepping stone, especially when you're early on in your career. You know, People might stray against saying, like, don't hop between jobs too often. And I think that is still true for middle career, once you've been in the industry for a while, but that early on, first few years, no one's going to blame you if you decide, oh, this isn't for me. I'm going to see what other opportunities there are.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, yeah, it's definitely tricky to wind up in that position too, just how you're saying with some
Mhm.
people when you graduate, then it's like, all right, well, what now? I don't have something lined up. Right. And then you have to make some tough decisions. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're sharing all this stuff and everyone watching, right? You need to kind of assess, maybe your network, how many connections you've built up over time, what you do have lined up, what projects you're involving yourself in. If you're applying the jobs, right? A lot of this just comes down to simple things like applying, going out, actually doing things, right? It's just very simple stuff. And then once you start applying that, then you start seeing the results. But I think that a lot of what holds people back is probably imposter syndrome or just, not having the discipline to go out and do the small things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and like when you're building your resume, don't really focus on how many different things you can do, right? It's probably better to do one or two things and really focus in on that. Like I know a lot of people who do SAE, make that your thing. That way when you get to these interviews, you really can talk about that experience from multiple different viewpoints to how it's helped, improve you as a potential engineer.
indeed, indeed, indeed. So let's transition into a little bit about you.
Mhm.
So like, what are some of your goals in the future or that you're working towards or that you're trying to hit? Let's touch on that.
Oof, that's a hard one. Um, so I really don't have a long term goal, especially within the company. Um, I kind of find myself teetering between different paths depending on the day. Between like trying to go down a chief engineering route or project management, because there's aspects of both I enjoy. So it's kind of hard for me to say right now which one I want to like focus all of my energy on. So that's why I've kind of been trying to be in a bit of both worlds right now with my current position. But then, like short term goals, something I want to get more involved in is integration and test. I've been a systems engineer with a focus in requirements for the past 5.5 years. It'd be nice to get back to actually touching hardware,
Hmm.
interacting with the final product. Uh, that way, you can kind of see how everything fits together in one cohesive system, as opposed to just words on a page or pictures on a page that define the system.
Yep. Yeah, and like I mean a big thing I think a big thing for you, and I mean especially every student watching too, right? Like something when you're first starting your internship. I mean a lot of people, something that could sway you from getting the job and like the internship or just whatever it is could be you going in and thinking that this is not the exact position you want, or when they ask you, well, why do you like this position? You're like, well, I like the company, but I don't really want to do the specific job that you're
Hmm.
interviewing for or something like that, right? So I think that holds people back because then you get in there, then you can just really just go do whatever you want. Because our goal is to get in there, make a living, provide for our family, and then then we can start trickling into the specifics of exactly what we want to do, depending if that's like the route that we're taking, right? So I think like I mean I think for you just because you do this so well, like how you just stand out among a lot of people, right? Then opportunities will just open up, and then they'll just make stuff for you. Just how you said with the I already forgot the name of it, CAE, SAE,
Hmm.
CAE,
Yeah.
yeah. So like just how they made a position, right? I mean, over time, that's like just people will just make positions based off of what you're doing, right? So you just need to show up, be your best self, and I mean, just for all students, right? Don't just go in there and then advertise yourself as like you're gonna work hard, just like you said as well, contribute to the culture, bring energy, bring positivity. Half of it's people engineering because you're on a team that vibes well, and then everything is moving forward, then everything is just gonna move forward naturally, no matter what you're doing, right? So if you just hit all those things and you go in, then the position will just come to you. Just like someone else that we used to work with, they transitioned off the team, right? And then they I talked with them and I asked them, they were at like some networking event among like other coworkers, and then they talked to one of them, and then they built a relationship over time. And then as they kept talking, then something came up like, oh hey, I kind of need someone to do this, and that over here. And then they were like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, that sounds good. So then they went out, they made a new position for them, and then they just transitioned right into that. So that's how it happens a lot of times. What else do you think? Um, like what other like not weird because that's not weird, but people just don't know that that's how that works. Like what other types of things have you seen happen like that?
So like a personal experience for me is when I got the job,
Mhm.
uh, they asked me to rank like what kind of job I wanted. And going in, I had friends who had already worked at Lockheed, and so I knew like requirements engineering was probably everybody's least favorite,
Mhm.
right? And so me thinking, okay, I just want to get in the door. I put that as my top priority, which I can't say it definitely helped me, but I don't think it hurt. And it actually ended up being something I really enjoy. Um, so don't be afraid to try that new position, even if it doesn't sound great on paper. You might really thrive and enjoy it. Um, some weird ones I've seen over my time is people kind of following the stages of a program to
Mhm.
where like early on in a program it might be more requirements derivation, and then they transition onto an algorithm team, actually developing the algorithms for how the product works, and then transitioning again to a test team to kind of test out that product. So even within the same program, you can bounce around to different roles within that program, and you already get the benefit of being familiar with the product and familiar with the team. So it's a much smoother transition where you're not doing, one day I'm doing 100% this, the next I'm completely 180. It's more of a gradual, 25, 25, 50, 75 until you're in that new role. So I've seen that a good amount of times, and I definitely think that's one of the benefits of working for staying at one place long term is you get those different opportunities as your project kind of morphs over time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, people don't think about that, right? I mean, especially when I was just first starting, I'm like, okay, I just need a job, please. And then, like once you're in there, then it's just again how we've been saying, how it kind of just molds to you depending on what you want to do, how hard you work, and who you meet, who you connect with. I mean, it's the same kind of game in terms of trying to fiddle your way to the one job. Then once you're in there, it's the same thing to fiddle your way to the job that you're doing almost. So yeah, that's awesome. The next kind of part I want to talk about is going to be outside of work, right? Because this is a big thing with FormAWin that we teach all of our students. Fitness needs to be a top priority, right? So for you, in terms of fitness, how important has that been in your life? And, is there anything else you want to add to it?
I've definitely gone. I've been, kind of seahorse or on and off with fitness. Um, college much more active because walking around everywhere, had gyms ready available, didn't have to make food.
Yep.
Uh, when I started my job, definitely harder because going from a more flexible schedule to a
Yep.
more rigid, at the time 9 hour workday, now 10 hour workday. It's harder to find that time. I've definitely the times I have been able to pick it back up for long periods of time, like when I was working towards a half marathon, as you probably remember,
Mhm.
uh, definitely felt more energetic throughout the day. Uh, Maybe not right after I did the long run,
Sure.
but throughout the day, like it gave me this energy that when you just get out of bed, you're groggy, you don't really get that moving. So now these days, I've been trying to go more at, like before work.
Yep.
And when I tell people, yeah, I go to the gym at like 4:30 a.m., they're like, that's so damn early. I was like, well, yes, but
That's the point.
then I'm not awake for work days, and as bad. And when I get home, I don't have to, compete between being tired from work and then trying to find the energy to go to the gym.
Yep. And then
So,
family time too. Yeah, like it's almost mandatory to just go in the morning because that's the only time to do it. So yeah,
mhm.
100%. I love it, man. I love it.
Make excuses to not go.
Hmm. In terms of so let's transition out of that. I mean that's just a huge thing that should be much more advertised or widely kind of smack in the middle of everything. But in terms of you know we've already talked a lot. You've given a lot of advice. We've kind of dug into it pretty hardcore. I think everyone can take a lot from this, go apply it right away, right? But what's one more tip and trick to get an engineering job super fast? Like if someone's looking like, okay, I graduate in a month, I don't have anything lined up, what would you do?
What would I do? Look for small to medium sized companies near you. Uh, and just even if they don't have applications, you can always apply, send them an email. Just quantity at a certain point, it's just quantity over quality.
Hmm.
It's not about getting the best job, it's about getting a job. And once you have a job, then you have that flexibility of time, you have a stable income to then kind of search for what you were really looking for in the first place. It's like our coworker, Daniel, as you probably remember, out of college, he ended up getting a job at a small, you know, robotic construction company that was more local to where we were living. And then after a year, transitioned to Lockheed, um, by using that same kind of networking of go back to the school, go to their tech talks. But he took that first job that kind of then, once he went back to the school to go for these tech talks, gave him a leg up on everyone else by already experience. So yeah,
Yeah,
quantity.
there, there you go. That's huge, man. Well, Trevor, listen, I mean, I think we've hit it on the head. Maybe we can do a follow-up at some point in the future. And I mean, this has been great. Again, everyone, make sure you go rewatch this, like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know who you want to see next. See you guys on the next episode. Trevor, thank you so much. Go
Thank you.
FormAWin, guys.